1848, the United States of America achieved a total military victory over Mexico. American armies occupied the Mexican capital. Its government was in ruins. Its vast territories lay helpless. The doctrine of manifest destiny, the belief that America was divinely ordained to expand across the continent, had reached its violent, triumphant peak. They could have taken everything, every city, every port, every mountain and desert, from the Yucatan to the Pacific. So why did they stop? Why, at the moment of ultimate power, did America refuse to annex all of Mexico? Was it a sudden act of mercy, a moment of enlightened restraint, or was the reason something far more unsettling? A secret buried in the heart of the young republic itself. Tonight we uncover the hidden truth of why America's greatest conquest was deliberately left unfinished. The story begins in 1846, driven by a potent cocktail of land hunger and ideological fervor. The United States declared war on Mexico. The concept of manifest destiny was more than a slogan. It was a national creed. It promised that American liberty, Protestantism, and Anglo-Saxon civilization were destined to spread. And spread they did. American forces, smaller but better led and equipped, won a string of stunning victories. They seized California and New Mexico with startling ease. General Zachary Taylor pushed deep into northern Mexico, while General Winfield Scott executed a brilliant campaign that led from the shores of Veracruz straight to the heart of the Aztec Empire. On Mexico City, by the fall of 1847, the war was effectively over. The American flag flew over the National Palace. Mexico was a broken nation, utterly at America's mercy. Back in Washington, a powerful faction known as the All of Mexico movement began to roar. Newspapers and politicians demanded the ultimate prize. Not just a piece of Mexico, but the whole of it. The logic seemed undeniable. If destiny had brought them this far, why stop now? The entire continent was there for the taking, and yet they hesitated. At the very peak of its power, the nation blinked. The decision not to take all of Mexico was not born of military necessity or diplomatic compromise. It was born of a profound and deeply troubling self-examination. The truth is that America looked into the eyes of a conquered Mexico and was terrified by what it saw. The first demon that stared back was the demon of race. To the mid-19th century American mind, steeped in the theories of Anglo-Saxon superiority, the people of Mexico were a fundamental problem. They were not seen as fellow Republicans in waiting. They were viewed as a vast alien population, a degraded mongrel race. Listen to the words of the era's most influential men. Senator John C. Calhoun of South Carolina, a titan of American politics, argued with chilling clarity. He declared that his nation had never dreamed of incorporating into its union any but the Caucasian race, the free white race. To annex Mexico, he warned, would be to incorporate a population of 8 million people who were simply unfit for self-government. It would be an injection of poison into the body politic. This wasn't just a Southern view. It was widespread. Northern abolitionists and Southern slaveholders, who agreed on almost nothing else, found common ground here. They feared that annexing a large Catholic Spanish-speaking populace would corrupt the nation's institutions and dilute its essential Anglo-Protestant character. They believed they were building a republic, a modern Rome, But it was a republic in their eyes for a specific kind of people. The prospect of granting citizenship to millions of Mexicans was, to them, a demographic catastrophe in the making. It was one thing to conquer a territory. It was another thing entirely to absorb its people, and that was a price they were unwilling to pay. But an even greater fear lurked beneath the surface: the poison of slavery. This was the second, more powerful demon. For decades, America had been held together by a fragile, explosive compromise between North and South. Every new square mile of territory added to the Union forced the nation to ask a terrifying question: free soil or slave soil? The Missouri Compromise, the gag rules in Congress. Every political maneuver was designed to keep this question from tearing the country apart. Now imagine annexing all of Mexico, a vast nation that had, ironically, already abolished slavery in 1829. Suddenly, the United States would acquire not just 8 million new people, but millions of free people living on land coveted by Southern slaveholders. The result would have been instantaneous political combustion. The South would demand the right to expand slavery into the new territories. The North, with its growing abolitionist movement, would have resisted with furious intensity. The debate would have shattered the fragile peace. Annexing Mexico wouldn't just be adding a new state. It would be throwing a lit torch into a powder keg. Many leaders, even those who believed in manifest destiny, understood this fatal paradox. To achieve the ultimate goal of expansion could mean the immediate self-destruction of the Union they claimed to be expanding. The survival of the United States itself was at stake. Faced with this choice, conquest or survival, they chose survival. Finally, there was a philosophical ghost haunting the halls of power. The ghost of Imperial Rome. The founding generation and their successors were obsessed with classical history. They read Plutarch and Tacitus. They saw themselves as the inheritors of the Roman Republic, and they were acutely aware of how it fell. Rome's downfall, as they understood it, came from overexpansion. It came from conquering diverse peoples who could not be assimilated. It came from the shift from a compact republic to a sprawling, decadent empire run by military strongmen. Annexing Mexico felt like a horrifying step down that very same path. It would require a massive standing army to occupy the country indefinitely. It would create a class of proconsuls and governors ruling over a subject population. It would, they feared, corrupt the nation's soul, turning a republic of citizens into an empire of subjects. This was the ultimate betrayal of the American experiment. They chose to stop not just to save their union from slavery or their race from dilution, but to save their republic from the temptations of empire. So the common explanation that the U.S. simply cherry-picked the valuable, sparsely populated lands is woefully incomplete. It wasn't a matter of convenience, it was a matter of deep existential fear. The All of Mexico movement was real, powerful, and offered total dominion. But the price of that dominion was deemed too high. The rejection of total conquest was not an act of benevolence towards Mexico. It was an act of self-preservation, driven by America's own internal demons. In the end, manifest destiny was not stopped by a foreign army. It was stopped by a mirror. America's leaders looked at the prospect of a total victory and saw the reflection of a nation they could no longer recognize. A racially mixed, politically fractured imperial state on the brink of civil war. The decision to take half of Mexico instead of all of it did not prevent that war, it only delayed it. The vast new territories acquired in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo directly led to the Compromise of 1850, Bleeding Kansas, and ultimately Fort Sumter, the demons they tried to avoid by not swallowing Mexico whole simply grew stronger on the half they devoured. It leaves us with a chilling question about nations and their destinies. What happens when a country's greatest ambition is checked, not by its enemies, but by its own deepest fears? And what other historical turning points were secretly decided by the ghosts within? Subscribe to find out.